What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Griff.tv.
Clean, man, I'm feeling mean. Billy Jean with the lean, dancing on the green.
In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how you can use a Behringer X Touch to control a Behringer XR18 and still have full iPad or Android control. So for this, all you're going to need is you're going to need your XR18. Mine is in this small rat case. You're going to need an X Touch. You're going to need a router. I'm using this TP-Link router, and you're going to need all the power cables for all of them, and you're going to need 2 Ethernet cables, preferably Cat 6 and above. This is a Cat 7. So first thing you want to do is you want to clear everything out of the way and just have the XR18 and the router out. So the first thing you want to do is you want to get power to the XR18 and the router. My router is actually installed in this case inside here, but the first thing you want to do is get power to both of those. Because my router and my XR18 are in a rack environment, this means I just need to take this single plug, which is the plug that powers this extension lead, and then everything will have power. So once they've both got power, you just want to flick the switch on each of them and then just wait for them to both boot up. Then once they're booted up, you want to take the first Ethernet cable and then you want to plug that into any of the Ethernet ports. Don't plug it into the WAN port, make sure it's plugged into the actual Ethernet ports on them. Usually on most routers there's 4. As long as it's plugged into any of the normal Ethernet ones, you're fine. So I'm just going to plug this into number 4. Then you want to get the other end of the Ethernet cable and then go around to the front of the XR18. Then once you're on the front, you're just going to make sure it's got power by checking this little orange light. Then you want to get the other end of your Ethernet cable. I'm just going to wrap mine round here to make it look nice. And then you're going to plug it into the one that says remote. Make sure you don't plug it into the one that says Ultranet, because that does something completely different. Then you just want to wait a few seconds for it to connect. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to get your iPad or Android device. Then you just want to log in as normal. Then you want to connect. So my router gives off a 2.5, which is this one, and it also gives off a 5 GHz. I'm going to connect to the 2.5. My internet stuff for my XR18 is here, and that's simply just so when I rent it out, people don't keep asking me what the password is. So here we are, I'll just type in the password and then wait for it to connect. And then once it's connected, it'll have the check mark next to it. It could come up saying this has no internet. Don't worry, it's because there's actually no physical internet going to the router. It's just your XR18. Then you want to scroll over to the XR app, which is free to download from the App Store and the Android Store. And then your XR18 will pop up here. So if you click on that, and then it loads in. And this is the last show file that I used for a wedding that I did. So next, you just want to put the iPad to the side and then bring over the X Touch. So for the X Touch, you will need 2 cables. You will need your Ethernet cable and you will need your standard power cable that comes with it. So what you want to do is plug in the power cable first of all. Then once it's got power, you want to get the Ethernet cable, get one end of it, and then you want to plug that into any of the remaining yellow ports or just the Ethernet ports on your router. And then I'm going to spin this back round so I'm back at the front so I can access all the ports. So then what you now want to do is you want to look at all the ports on the back. Then you want to connect the other end of that Ethernet cable into the port on your XR18 that says remote. And then you want to flip it round. You now want to make sure you can see everything. So I've got 2 camera angles here, which I'll keep flicking between. So I've got one that sees all the labelled things on this side because you can't see it that well from this camera. We've got this camera to see everything. So what you want to do is you want to hold down the select button, then click power on, and then once it's on, you want to let go of the select button, and then this is what you need to look at here, the modes. So here we have the different modes. So you want to make sure this is selected to the one that says XCT1, and then you want to make sure this is on network. Then you want to make sure this one here is on DHCP, and then you want to make sure that says DHCP on. And then what you want to do is you just want to hold down the select button and then wait a few seconds and then it will say an IP address here, and then scan. You want to hold the scan button, and then everything will go to what settings on your XR18 are. So let's take you through what is actually on here. So here we are, we have channels 1 through 8, and then every channel on here is the same as on the iPad. So if you label a scribble strip on the iPad, it will label the scribble strip on here. So, and then when you come to the next page, it will move onto your next bank of channels. So I'm only using channels 1 through 10 for the wedding that I did. And also you can link, the channels are linked. So if you selected any channels to link over on the iPad, they will be linked over on here. So for example, if I go back onto this page, we have 2 aux channels. So we actually had the Chapel PC audio, and then we had my MacBook running some sound effects. They were like music type things, and these are linked. So if I pull up one fader, it will pull up the left and the right of that channel. So it goes for both. Then if I click the mutes, both mutes will turn off and then turn back on again. So it is really good. So, and then you're literally just clicking here where it says fader bank to go between each one. And then depending on what you click select here, will determine what parameters you can change within the channels. And we'll come on to that in a second. So here we have channels 1 through 8, and then we have the main. This is motorized, but that is really so you can just control it off the iPad, and then any saved settings, when you boot it back up, just whiz into the right position. So let's take you through the fader banks. So channels 1 through 8 on here, then if we click through, we have 9 through 16. And then here we have the aux channel, and then here you have your returns. Then here we have the buses plus the main. So as you can see, if you move this main on here, it moves that main and so on. And then here we have the effects and the DCA groups. The only annoying thing is you can't actually label the DCA groups, so the best thing to do is put a bit of electrical tape across the top or on your mixer somewhere and just label what each of them does. It would be great if they brought out a software update to do it, but at the moment you can't do it on the iPad and you can't do it on here. So then let's show you this cool bit. So if we open back up the iPad, and then as you can see here we have channel 1 and here we have channel 1. So if we move channel 1 on here, it moves it on the iPad. Then if you move channel 1 on the iPad, it moves it on here. This is brilliant. It's not just because it looks cool. What you can do is you can have this at the front of house, and then you can be sound checking with this. I would say the iPad is better for sound checking than this is, and this is better for actually running the performance or the actual. This is running for the actual show. What you can also do is, I'm doing it on a show coming up soon, is I can have this at front of house, and then the band can have an iPad. They can connect and they can control their own mixes on stage. So I can send all of their stuff to bus 1, and then they can be controlling how much level they have between each other. So that is really handy, so they can also hear what's going on. And I also think this is better for doing EQs, because for me, I prefer doing EQs visually. So if we go on to channel 1 here, and I can see the EQ, and I've also got an inbuilt RTA, where on here I can do the EQs, but I haven't got the RTA, and it's not as visual, so you don't really know what's going on compared to this is more like EQing on an analog desk. So let's take you through the features over here. So I have actually labelled all of these. Everything that's labelled on here are the only things that actually do anything. All the other buttons, all of these, and all of these don't actually do anything. So if you guys want to copy this and do it, the easiest way I found was just use a label maker, label it all up, and it goes together. Also, there's the global view button. I haven't labelled that because it's pretty self-explanatory. If you were to, example, click the gain settings and you wanted to quickly get out of it, you just click this and it goes back to normal. So let's take you through what it is. So if we were to click gain, then on top of here, all the settings change to the gain. So we can look at channel 1, we have 28.5 of gain coming through, and we can just alter that by turning it, and the number will change, and this little orange bit will turn along. And then if we want to do the same for channel 6, we can do the same, and obviously because these channel 5 and channel 6 are paired together, it will be the same for each other. And then if we just scroll to the next page and so forth, and then if we click gain again, we just come back out of it to normal. Then we have the pan, so same as the gain, it alters up here, and we can alter how much pan is going from left to right. Then we have the EQ setting. So for this, it's a little bit different. Not every channel has the EQ. What you actually have to do is select what channel. So you're best coming out of the EQ. So if I wanted to EQ mic 1, I would click the select button, then I would click EQ, and then I can add in all the different EQs at different frequencies. But as I say, I personally think it's easier to do the EQing on the iPad, but it's up to you. And then we have the buses, so you can click that, and then it's the same, whatever channel selected, you can alter how much is going to that bus, but there is actually a quicker way to do the buses, and I'll show you that in a minute. Then here you can do the same as for the buses, you can alter how much is going through the effects, but yet again there's a quick way of doing that in a minute that I'm going to show you. Then finally you have the gate and compressor settings, so the same, you select what channel, so here we have channel 1 selected, and I can select how much gain and compressor is going through each channel. Then we come through to here. This here I think is one of the easiest parts and the best parts about the desk. Say you're wanting to put an effect on some of the mics. So say for example, all of the mics you're wanting to put a reverb. So you would select within the iPad, you would select a reverb onto one of the effects, be that 1, 2 or 3 or 4, and then this is a really quick way of selecting what channels you want. So say for example you've put the effect onto the effects group 1, and then you just literally click number 1, then all your faders will jump down, and then what you do is then you select how much channel you want. So say for example we just go to 0 on all channels, and then that means that now all of the mics are going to effects 1, and they're all going to receive however much reverb we say in there. And then if we just click the button again, everything goes back to normal, and we have selected how much reverb is now going to that channel. And then if we want to get rid of it, you just click number 1 again, and then bring them all down, and then we select it goes back to normal. Then I think this is much easier for buses. So say for example, on this thing, for this show file, we had 2 speakers at the end for the organist to hear the rest of the mix. So I pretty much sent everything to him. So if we were to click bus 1, as you can see, literally everything that we used for that show is going directly to there, so the organist could hear what was going on. So if I wanted to create a new mix, so say the band for this, they had some in-ears and they plugged them directly into one of the aux ports. So what I would do is I would come over to here. So say they wanted it on bus 3, I would click number 3, and then I could select what's going through. So they might want a tiny bit of mic, they might want a load of mic 1, but a tiny bit of mic 2, then quite a bit of mic 3, but nothing of mic 4, and then they wanted both of the sound effects at equal lengths, but they didn't want anything else. So all I would do is once I've determined what they want and I've agreed with them how it sounds, I just click number 3 and then go back to my normal mixing. Last we have the mute groups. I personally don't think the mute groups are worth it on a digital desk. DCAs are miles more intuitive to use, but it's your own opinion. The way mute groups are done is you have to select the mute groups in your iPad or your laptop, whatever's connected, and then if you want to just click mute group 1, you click mute group 1, and then that mute group mutes. Same for 2, same for 3, same for 4, and you can have everything on there. So that is it on how to connect the Behringer XR18 with the X-Touch. If you want to know anything else about these 2 pieces of equipment, drop it down below in the comments and I'll come back to you. Say if you want a video on how the DCAs work on here or something like that, or anything to do with the XR18 or the X-Touch, I can make a video about it. So drop any comments down below, any questions, and I'll try and answer them as best I can. And I will see you next Friday at 5 PM for another video.
Man, I'm feeling mean. Billie Jean with the lean. Dancing on the green. Cello with the bread.